run.
Guys, welcome to Better Bachelor. My name is Joker with a face for radio and a voice for print. The California Republic, California State, the woke just voted themselves out of work. Now, this is a policy that went in on January 1st, and I like doing these videos because California was what they call a super state, meaning that the the Congress and the Senate and the governors and the mayors and the district leaders and et cetera, everybody there is pretty much a Democrat when it comes to these major cities, Los Angeles, San Francisco, et cetera. Now, down south in smaller communities, you'll find some Republicans. But when it comes to the state governance overall, it is overwhelmingly left-leaning and the woke. And because they don't like injustice and unbalance and everybody needs to be equal and everything needs to be fair, they decided to come out and do a protest, or the woke workers, the people working at McDonald's and all these other places, decided to come out and strike and complain and say they need the minimum wage to be raised, and it is destroying the state, along with the crime and everything else. But you know, when I was a young buck in high school, I worked at a Burger King, and I made $3.25 an hour, I believe was the minimum wage. You can look that up, but I think it was $3.25. And I worked after high school. I would go and work at Burger King from like 4 because it was across from the high school. So I could walk over there, ride my bike over there, work from like 4 to 7, 4 to 8, and then I went home and did my homework and went to bed by 10. Now, that was obviously after I was of the age of 16, and the reason why is because I wanted gas money, because my dad and mom did not give me gas money. They would let me borrow their car, but I also had to put my own gas in the tank, and I had to give my father some of the money that was for the insurance to insure the vehicle. So I had to pay my own way. Now, insurance and gas was very inexpensive compared to today, but the wage was very inexpensive compared to today. And then after high school, I became a lifeguard, and then I worked at a gas station, and I slowly, worked over the years until my last quote-unquote real job was working at a network as a network engineer for a Fortune 500 company. Cisco was the name of it, and I was making about $120,000 a year. That's a long job path for a guy that never went through college and bothered to do that stuff. But if you asked me at the time, hey, should you, at working at McDonald's or Burger King or whatever, should you make a living wage? My answer then is the same as it would be now, which is like, no. Like, why would anybody want to do a job like this for forever? There's so many other bigger things to aspire to. But what's happening is people are not getting the education. They don't have the drive. They don't have the wherewithal to better themselves. And so they want to work at McDonald's forever and make a career out of it. And so that's what they're trying to do. But to do that, they had to raise the minimum wage to force these restaurants to pay more. And so they made the minimum wage for working at restaurants $20. Now, you might ask yourself, wait, is the minimum wage for everybody in California $20? No, it's $16. So if you're working as a janitor or as another, I don't know, a EMT. Some of the EMTs I know only got $13 an hour. Maybe you're an EMT and you're getting $16 an hour. All of a sudden, going to work for McDonald's is a pay raise. And you say, geez, okay, well, more people are going to apply just to work in fast food for the extra money if they're working a low-wage job like being a janitor or cleaning or maybe sanitation, something like that. And what happens? Well, the restaurants say, hey, we got to increase our prices, or we've got to lay off people. But the woke don't care. It's feel good. It allows people that want to be at McDonald's for the rest of their lives instead of bettering themselves a living wage. Ironically, you want to pay people like that. This is a place where kids can go work after school or young people can get their foot in the door working. But now they can't anymore because these companies are going to say, I'm not going to hire a kid that doesn't know how to do anything for $20 an hour. So I'm going to start off with this today. This is policies. What happens when you raise the cost of paying people? What happens when you let crime go rampant? What happens when things go just off the rails, and it's all because of these woke policies. Oh, people are doing illicit substances. We don't want to lock them up. We're going to give them safe areas to do these illicit substances. But then they walk out of that area, and now there's crime-ridden streets all over the place. I'm going to play this video here while I continue to talk. It says every store is closed in San Francisco downtown, and this is from August of 2023. Now, at the time, I did a video on this, and I actually talked about how California is absolutely destroying itself. California in the big cities like Los Angeles, San Francisco, places like that. And when you look on these streets, you realize, well, if the businesses are closing and now people don't have to work, they can work remotely, so the offices are closing, all of a sudden you've got these buildings that are empty. Well, there are people that own these buildings, and they rent these buildings out, to the businesses. And so they have to get paid. Because if you bought a building for, I don't know, $100 million in downtown San Francisco, and you were charging these businesses rent and these office spaces rent and people living in them rent, and then with that you paid the mortgage on the place and kept some for yourself. Well, as the businesses go and as the offices go, the people living there go. And all of a sudden these buildings are not collecting any rent anymore. And some of these companies say, you know something, I'm going to sell it, and they'll try to sell it at a loss. And if they can't sell it, what happens? They brush their hands off and they say, bank, you can take this back. And then the bank takes it and the bank holds on to it. And the bank's not making any money for it. But the bank loaned out the money. So now your money, which is usually at the banks, was given out to somebody, and now it's in a worthless building. And this is why you're seeing a lot of these banks starting to collapse. And it hasn't even begun yet because our government keeps pumping fake money and giving bailouts to these countries or to these cities. What happens when the bailouts go away? It all falls down. We're like a zombie being propped up by strings and sticks, just shambling it all along. And all these businesses are now closed. And now, I'll put this at the end. Let me get to the news story, and then I'll get to this gal in a moment. So what happened? Well, this is articles from 6 months ago or so from The Guardian. California's fast food workers win the fight for $20 an hour pay and industry council. So you've got all these woke kids out there, and yes, they're woke. They're all woke because they're marching and they're political. In the face of a recent intense pressure on fast food workers, employees in the sector in California are about to get a boost with the creation of a body that will set wages and other standards for the industry. The move is a hard-fought win for the labor movement in the state and is expected to be signed into law. So now you've got these labor unions riling people up saying you deserve more because the labor union gets a cut of every paycheck. So they get a payout. So labor gets all these people, and they say, hey, you deserve more. And the people go, okay, instead of $15 an hour, we're going to get $20 an hour. And everybody goes, yay, and they become part of a union. And then after the union takes their cut of your paycheck, guess what? You're making $15 an hour. And then on top of that, you get taxed into the dirt by California. They say fast food workers in California have held over 450 strikes since 2020. According to the labor group Fight for 15, the unrest was spurred on by having to continue working through the bug amid low wages. Workers have also reported high rates of wage theft, being denied meal breaks or overtime pay. And granted, yes, you should be able to have some breaks and things like that. Well, what comes after that? Well, from Fortune, California's new $20 an hour fast food minimum wage is so good that schools are worried they can't compete for cafeteria workers. Because a woman or a man working in a cafeteria serving food doesn't get the $20 an hour because they're not working in the fast food industry. You're working for the school district, and the school district doesn't want to pay $20 an hour. It's okay for the restaurants, the privately owned restaurants, to pay for $20 an hour, but the schools don't want to pay that much because they need the school money for other things. I'm not going to read down through this. You get the idea. They're like, it's such a good deal. Well, from April 2nd, 2024, California, and so it just got past April 1st. Remember that. California's $20 fast food minimum wage balloons menu prices, with some chains increasing costs by nearly $2. Well, what did you think was going to happen? See, these woke-tards, these lefties, they always think that restaurants or businesses are skimming huge percentages off businesses. But it's because the politicians have never worked in an industry in their life. I have. I've actually worked in restaurants and other things. And what they don't tell you is like the McDonald's that's owned by the local guy, right? They may make $1 million a month, but then you've got to pay, 2% of it for leasing the land back to McDonald's, because McDonald's buys the land and then you have to lease the restaurant off the land to them. That's how McDonald's makes money. McDonald's doesn't make money off of burgers and fries. McDonald's makes money off the private individuals that build the restaurants, and then they purchase the land that the restaurant's going to be on, and then you got to give your vig back to McDonald's. That's where McDonald's money comes from. So McDonald's, it doesn't matter the pricing of the food or whatever. They don't care as long as they get their cut of the restaurant being on the land that McDonald's has purchased. So then you got to pay X percent back to McDonald's, and then you've got your electric and your water and your staff, and you've got to pay for the food that McDonald's sends you, and the cups and the napkins and and by the time it's done, a lot of these businesses that make $1 million a month, the owner may only be making 5, 10, 15, 20 grand a month. Not a lot of it. But see, these dummies in charge don't know that. So they just tell all the constituents and all the people that vote for them, we're cracking down on these millionaires and billionaires. And so the restaurant says, I got to raise wages. Otherwise, I'm not going to make any money as the owner. So I have to raise prices if you want me to pay for these people. And this is the day after it went live. And everybody went, oh my God, look at the prices on these drive-through menus. This is who can pay for a $15 or $18 Big Mac meal? Well, you better, because you're the ones that force them all to raise their prices. So what happens? Then the pea-brains in the government realized, well, the people that are making $15 or $16 an hour minimum wage that aren't working in fast food, well, they can't afford fast food anymore. They can't afford that because now their food prices have gone up. So what do? Well, now everybody else needs to make more money. So all the prices of everything comes up everywhere, at the grocery store, at the gas station, everywhere. Now everything's more expensive. And they say, oh my gosh, nobody can afford anything. Well, you know what we need to do to fix that, don't you? That's right, we need a higher minimum wage. And then they may raise the minimum wage again, and the cost of everything goes up again, and on and on and on. They have zero understanding of how finance works. The correct minimum wage should be $0. Because there are people that if you walked into a restaurant and say, well, what are you guys paying? And they say $3, well, no one's going to work there. But if somebody says, hey, you know something? I'm a kid in high school. I would like the experience. $3 is fine or $5 is fine. I don't have a lot of bills. And it's like a little bit of a cushion, and it's helping me build my resume. You know what? I'll do that. And if nobody does it, then you don't get to hire anybody. It's getting in the way of letting the free market work. And then when it fails, they go, oh, capitalism, evil capitalism. It's all their fault. No, it's government interfering. I don't know what Gavin Newsom's done with all his life, but I guarantee you it's not work and or think. They say you'll be dropping a lot of dollar on that Whopper. Menu prices at fast food chains across California have increased as a new law went into effect requiring them to pay $20 an hour minimum wage that works to workers since Monday. The Post checked menus at several restaurants in the L.A. area to see if the costs are already being passed on to consumers with mixed results. The biggest leap was at Burger King, where a Texas double Whopper meal cost $15 on March 29th, but almost $17 on April 1st, a whopper $1.80, nearly 12% for the same meal. The Big Fish meal also jumped from $7.50 to $11.50, an increase of $4 or 53%. Most other item increases were anywhere from 25 cents to $1. But Burger King did not respond to a request for comment. Burger King was not alone. At Hart's House, a fast food chain founded by actor Kevin Hart, prices increased up to 25%. Before the law was enacted, large fries cost $4.49. On April 1st, that price went up to $5.99. Well, Kevin Hart's an actor. You know, it's not like, but he also owns the business shop. And it's like, hey, I've got to make enough to make sure I'm getting paid for doing this and to pay the people now. And if I'm not getting paid enough to do this, I close the business, right? Like we talked about in this other video. Because of the crime and the rampant BS and everything else going on, they just said, we're going to close. So now they're complaining about the minimum wage. So the minimum wage, the minimum wage raise. So what does California do to keep their prices down? This is from April 11th, just 2 weeks after the price hike went into effect. California just hiked minimum wage for fast food workers. Some restaurants are replacing them with kiosks. They say California just raised the minimum wage for the state's fast food sector workers by $4 to $20. As if on cue, it raised a familiar refrain that those workers will be replaced by technology such as self-service kiosks. That's likely to happen in some instances where businesses who haven't yet done so will look to technology to help offset higher labor costs, industry experts said. They say the employment level in fast food restaurants still hasn't reached the pre-bug levels, so the wage increase are a way to attract workers into that environment. New wage took effect in California on April 1st and applies to restaurant chains with more than 60 nationwide locations. So now they're laying off people, they're replacing with technology, and they're raising the prices on everything. And so nobody is further ahead than they were before they put the law into effect. They said this is from the Washington Times. Fast food chains find ways to get around the $20 minimum wage, get rid of the workers. And they go on to kind of say the same thing. A lot of these franchise owners are like, we don't have any money. Like the prices got to go up. And now people are like, oh, this is ridiculous. I can't afford fast food. I can't afford groceries. I can't afford anything anymore. Well, you get what you asked for, you dummies. And to solve the inflation, let's check in with a young lady that's just graduated from college, our best and our brightest that's coming from college. Let's check in because, guys, she has figured out how to settle for inflation and the world's monetary problems. Let's check in with Miss Thing here.
USA is in debt. Everybody's in debt. Why don't we just print more money? And hold on, because I've heard the whole inflation, it'll go up topic. Well, just don't. Just don't make it go up. Let's just get the printers going. Let's print some more money. Like, aren't we the ones printing money? Hold on. Let me really logically think about this. The trees make paper. The paper is money. Okay, so we cut down more trees, snip, snip, and we print some more money. The world would be a better place if I was president. No inflation, nothing goes up. We just print more money. We don't just give it away, but we print it and then we're not in debt anymore. Because aren't we like a lot in debt? I'm not stupid. But like for real though, should I like go tell the president? Like, hey, I know we were having some financial problems. I just had a little idea. Print some more money. Isn't it just like that simple? I feel like so many world problems are just like have really simple solutions. Like what other, I guess the printers, they cost some money. Maybe labor for whoever's printing the money. I'll print the dang money. And then the trees, the ink. But other than that, hey, we got more money. Just don't.
Dude. You know what? She's the Venezuelan money manager. That's who she is. She's the Venezuelan money manager, where you'd had to have $1 trillion just to go buy a piece of bread, to buy a loaf of bread. She went to the AOC, which is the Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez School of Business. That's where she went. But this is how our government's thinking right now. It's how all the look at poor Canada. Canada and the United States are like we're bosom brothers now. We're bosom buddies. We're both doing the same thing. It's like, oh, we're going to give money all the way to all these other causes. And what people don't tell you The reason why that America gives away so much money to other countries is because they want to keep the American dollar strong. They want to keep it the petrodollar. And so if all these other countries have billions and billions of dollars in the United States dollar, they want to keep the dollar propped up so the value stays propped up globally. But what's going to happen is the BRICS nations and are starting to flip over to where they're no longer buying U.S. treasuries and bonds. They're buying gold. So pretty soon no one's going to want the U.S. dollar. You won't be able to give it away. And then we're going to see hyperinflation like we're seeing, and we're going to see the GDP and our products that we produce falling off a cliff, which is, wait for it, stagflation. And I did a video all 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago now, and I said we're heading towards hyperinflation and stagflation. Most of you guys, I think, were kind of on board and understood where I was coming from, but I had a lot of people saying, no, we're not going to go towards hyperinflation. Ta-da! And I'm not a guru. I was just repeating what I heard a lot of really smart, sound money people were saying, which is we're going to get in a lot of trouble. The more the government tries to control everything when it comes to these markets, the worse off they are. And our current administration, both Democrats and Republicans, both of them are giving our money away to everybody else while we sit here struggling. Canada's doing the same thing. And Europe is starting to do the same thing. Because what they're doing is they're printing all this money, and they're not putting it in the public sector. They're not putting it in the public sector. They're using it for government jobs. They're using it for paying military. They're using it for paying Social Security. They're using it for paying interest on the money. All this printing is devaluing the dollar, right? And as the dollar gets devalued, they need to raise inflation to counteract it. But the problem is the money they're printing is only going to the government and government sectors, and the inflation they're raising to slow that down or slow down the inflation, to slow down the inflation, they're raising the interest rates on everything. Gosh, I'm struggling with this today. They're raising the interest rates on everything, but the interest rates are not slowing anything because it's the government that has the money, not the people. I haven't seen any extra money, so the interest rate only hurts me. It doesn't stop me from spending the free money from the government because I don't have it. The government has it. But the government's borrowing it at a high interest rate. It's ridiculous. We're falling off a cliff over here. This guy just complains. He's talking about the trash and how bad everything is in Los Angeles. I'll just let this play as well, because they're not using good policy on anything anymore. And this is what happens when governments decide to start sticking their fingers into everything and trying to control the markets. They fall apart. And they're going to fall apart. And they already are falling apart, but they're going to get worse. Canadians, your inflation and your problems are just getting started. It's only going to get worse. And they're the frog in the boiling pot for the United States, because we're going to be right behind them pretty soon. Things are not going to get any better. So I'll tell you guys what. I'll leave it there. I wanted to just do this little news segment because what California's doing, supposedly California is the state that leads the nation. Well, they're going to try to implement Californication across the United States. They're already attempting to do it in Canada, and because they want a carbon tax and rain tax and wind tax. I wish I was kidding. They really want to tax you on that stuff. And they take those taxes and they put them into government things, and then they say, oh, look, the GDP is great, and it's just government stuff. And so now the government is being subsidized by the people via taxes, and the people aren't getting anything for their taxes. Things are going to get rough. Things are going to get real, real rough. But I'll tell you what, California's leading the way, and they just voted themselves out of work. And coming to a town near you pretty soon is also unemployment, if this keeps going at this rate. All right, guys, I'll leave it there. I'll see you in the next one.